Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror thriller TV series named The Return Less Revenants, Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. The story begins at the Costa home, nestled at the foot of a mountain. As the camera pans, we see a collection of mounted butterflies on the wall. Suddenly, the largest one flutters its wings, shatters the glass of its frame, and flies towards the white-haired Mr. Costa. Just then, a sharp knock on the door jolts him awake. The scene shifts to a young girl, Camille, climbing a hill onto the dam road. Through her urgent steps and an overhead shot, we see the town's twinkling lights in the distance. Her home is in this lakeside town. Camille runs without stopping, walking from dusk until nightfall. This town, located near the dam, is not very large. After a busy day, the town's residents gather at the lake pub in the evening for some small talk and a couple of drinks. Of course, they also engage in other activities. For instance, Jerome is in the bar's storeroom hooking up with Lucy. However, Jerome has to pay for it. It seems like Lucy is a prostitute, but actually, she's a waitress at the bar. When Lucy takes the money, she doesn't give Jerome a clear answer about meeting again, seeming to know it won't happen. As Jerome leaves the storeroom, he runs right into his daughter, Lena. He remains completely unfazed, casually taking out his cigarettes and sharing one with Lucy. Throughout the encounter, Lena and Jerome exchange no words. The relationship between this father and daughter is like that of strangers. After leaving the bar, Jerome drives to the Helping Hand support group. This association is a source of spiritual support for many in town. Its leader, Pierre, serves as both their therapist and soul guide. The meeting has already started, but no one pays much attention to Jerome's arrival, which suggests his tardiness is a regular occurrence. He has to attend this time because this meeting required every participant to vote on a very important matter. The scene flashes back to 4 years ago, the time when a school bus carrying 38 students and a teacher suddenly swerved on a bend in the dam road and plunged over the edge. All 40 people on board, including the driver, were killed. Those sitting in this meeting are the parents who lost their children. For years, they've attended Pierre's support groups, not so much to console each other, but out of a deep dependence on him. Just as Pierre is about to get to the main topic of the evening, the lights suddenly flicker. At that moment, the camera cuts between Camille, still walking on the road, and her mother, Claire. The power goes out, plunging the entire town into darkness. But just as quickly, it's restored. The meeting continues. Pierre presents a design rendering, explaining that there will be a plaque for each of the 38 students, and if there are no objections, the monument can be installed next weekend. The room is silent. No one objects. Then Jerome raises his hand and asks if the monument is expensive. He frankly states that he thinks it's ugly, questioning whether his aesthetic is flawed or if others genuinely find it beautiful. Pierre cuts his smelly bullshit off, saying directly that he knows what Jerome is thinking, reminding him that when he first proposed a monument, Jerome had called the idea meaningless. Unwilling to be interrupted, Jerome retorts that what he said before was that it was meaningless, but now he's saying it's ugly. Two different things. A parent, eager to defend Pierre, jumps in and lashes out at Jerome, calling him graceless and cheap, telling him he doesn't have to come if he doesn't want to. This remark hits a nerve, and Jerome immediately fires back. He says he comes here because he feels that going mad with them makes life a bit more interesting, especially since the accident turned his world upside down. Up to this point, Jerome comes across as self-centered and sharp-tongued. The scene shifts to Claire sitting in her daughter's room, where everything has been left untouched. Whenever she misses her daughter, she comes in to be alone for a while. Just then, she hears the front door open. Claire calls out her older daughter Lena's name a few times. Behind the refrigerator door in the open-plan kitchen, she sees her younger daughter, Camille. She can hardly believe her eyes. But the Camille before her is acting completely normal, complaining about the long walk home and explaining why she's so late, all while famished. Claire is utterly shocked but also overjoyed because her daughter was one of the students who died in the bus crash. Camille, whose death left her heartbroken, is now standing here, alive. With trembling hands, Claire makes a phone call. Cutting back to the meeting, Pierre's phone vibrates. Without looking to see who it is, he rejects the call, sending it to voicemail. After leaving a message for him, Claire calls her husband, Jerome. They are separated, but not yet legally divorced, a couple whose relationship has broken down. The moment Jerome sees it's Claire calling, he rushes outside to take the call. It's telling that in such a crisis, the first person Claire tries to contact is not Camille's father, but her therapist, Pierre, suggesting their relationship is complicated. When Jerome rushes over and sees Camille for himself, he is deeply shaken. He tries his best to control his emotions, partly to appear composed in front of Claire and partly out of sheer disbelief. It's clear he has deep affection for his younger daughter, Camille. After the meeting, Pierre listens to Claire's message and hurries over. Note that at this point, Pierre doesn't know what has happened. He simply thinks Claire wants to see him. The eye contact between the two perfectly conveys the heated yet restrained, ambiguous feelings of middle-aged people. Jerome stands nearby watching them, a sour feeling in his heart. Pierre is indeed calmer and more composed than Jerome in a crisis. After a brief chat with Camille, he concludes that she is one of the returned. However, Camille doesn't know she has died, nor does she understand why she has been resurrected. Her memory is stuck 4 years ago on the bus. At this point, the scene changes again. In her apartment, Julie, a socially anxious homebody who shares everybody's love for Daniel C.C. horror movies, receives a call. It's Mr. Costa from the beginning of the story calling for help. He's having sudden heart palpitations and urgently needs an injection. Julie promises to head over immediately. The perspective then shifts to a voyeuristic view. A peeping Tom behind a door is watching everything through a peephole. He watches Julie leave, then watches Simon come up the stairs. As Simon reaches Julie's door, the lights flicker again. Just as Simon rings the doorbell, our peeping Tom immediately opens the door to reveal herself. She's a flirtatious and bold woman. This busty neighbor takes a busty initiative to tell Simon that Julie just left. Simon explains that he's not looking for Julie, but for Adele. The neighbor says she's never heard of that person. Simon finds this strange, insisting that this is impossible, as Adele has always lived here. Just then, the neighbor's busty cat calls for her. Being a cat lover, she is summoned, quickly ending her conversation with the handsome man and closing her door. Left with no other choice, Simon goes to the lake pub. He looks for Adele, who is also a waitress at this bar. But Lucy, another waitress, says directly that she doesn't know anyone by that name. At that moment, Lena chimes in, saying that she doesn't know many people in town, but there aren't many named Adele. The Adele she knows is a librarian, tall, with long black hair, and very beautiful. Upon hearing this, Simon recognizes that Lena's description matches the person he's looking for. Lena says that if he buys her a drink, she'll take him there. Hearing that, her young lover quickly pulls Lena back, telling her not to be foolish. Lena, a typical rebellious girl, sees how handsome Simon is and pushes her lover away, telling him not to get in her way. True to her word, after finishing their drinks, Lena leads Simon through an underpass to a luxurious residential area. Lena mentions she's never seen Simon at the lake pub before, but Simon states that he grew up in this town. When Simon sees the large villa, he walks away without even a word of thanks. As Lena turns to leave, she shouts after him, asking why he has to be so cool, calling him a handsome, clueless guy. Through a glass window, Simon sees Adele trying on a wedding dress. He immediately rushes to the front door and pounds on it frantically. Hearing his voice, Adele breaks down, tearfully begging him to leave her alone. Her cries bring her daughter downstairs. Seeing her daughter, Adele immediately regains her composure, and mother and daughter embrace. Simon stops knocking and leaves. It seems like this Simon is also one of the returned dead. Back with Julie, she arrives at Mr. Costa's home and gives him the injection in the nick of time. Mr. Costa instantly feels much better. As she is leaving, she hears the clatter of cutlery and asks if he has someone over. Mr. Costa vehemently denies it. After seeing Julie off, he heads to the dining room and sees the woman from the black and white photos sitting at the table eating and drinking voraciously. It turns out the knocking at the beginning of the episode was from this woman. Her arrival makes Mr. Costa so anxious that his heart falters. After leaving, Julie sits waiting for a bus. A little boy quietly follows her all the way to her apartment building. Julie is a very soft-hearted person. On the surface, she tells herself not to get involved. But when the boy rings her doorbell and the nosy and busty neighbor across the hall comes out again to meddle, the boy looks frightened and grabs her hand. She decides to take him in, casually giving him the name Victor. The adopted Victor appears wise beyond his years, showing no gratitude and remaining silent like a mute. This irks Julie, who is used to being alone. She spitefully says she's going to call the police and hand him over to the authorities. After the call connects, Julie sees Victor looking at her with big, pitiful eyes, and her heart softens once again. And just like that, Victor successfully becomes a part of Julie's life. Lena returns home to find her returned sister, Camille, which leaves her stunned. Camille, seeing her now-grown twin sister, is equally shocked. At that moment, their mother rushes in and tearfully embraces both her daughters. Elsewhere, Mr. Costa gathers all the family photos, strikes a match, and sets them on fire. Behind the flames, we see Mrs. Costa tied up. The fire is massive, and both the town's police and firefighters rush to the scene. They find no body, which means Mrs. Costa managed to escape. After all this, the police captain returns home. We see that he is Adele's fiancé. The captain loves her very much. Adele tells him that he appeared again. She had thought she was having another hallucination about her long-disappeared husband, Simon, which is why she reacted so intensely and rejectingly. The captain comforts her using words first, telling her not to be afraid because he is there, then muscles later. They share a deep embrace, but without letting go of their hormones. In contrast to this tender moment, the waitress Lucy is not so fortunate. As she walks home from the bar through the underpass, she is ambushed by a cannibal killer, Serge. While violently stabbing Lucy in the abdomen with a knife, Serge continuously strokes her and makes shushing sounds. It is a restless night. As the power fails, several of the dead have returned to life in the town. So why did the power fail? Because the town relies on hydroelectricity from the dam we keep seeing in the show. The engineer monitoring the dam's reservoir discovers that the water level is inexplicably dropping. This is a very serious problem, but to avoid causing a panic, the person in charge decides to cover it up and secretly sends a team to inspect the reservoir underwater. Not far away on the dam, Mr. Costa suddenly climbs over the railing and jumps to his death. At Camille's house, Jerome has finally returned to the family with justification. The family sits in the living room, lost in thought. As Jerome's mind wanders, we are taken back 4 years. On that day, Camille told her father that the field trip was lame and asked if she could skip it. Jerome replied that the fee had already been paid, so how could she not go? He added that Lena was sick, otherwise she would definitely be going too. And so, Camille embarked on her journey to death. Actually, Lena wasn't really sick. As soon as her family left, her young lover went straight to her bedroom. It seems like Lena isn't really in love with this boy because she would not flirt with Simon in front of him. In truth, the one who really liked the boy was Camille. Lena knew this very well, but she still brought the boy to her bed. On one side, a journey to death. On the other, a journey of losing one's virginity. The special twin connection makes Camille feel uneasy on the bus. She yells that she wants to get off, but the driver refuses. The result is tragic. The driver doesn't see the newly resurrected Victor standing at the bend. The entire bus plunges off the dam. It could be said that Victor caused the accident, but if the driver had listened to Camille and stopped, none of this would have happened. Life is unpredictable. Who exactly is Victor? We'll find out in the next chapter. 35 years ago, we see Victor playing hide-and-seek with her mother. Note here that Victor doesn't call this woman Mom. From their conversation, it feels like the director is hinting at something. The mother asks her son what's wrong with him, and the older brother says he often has nightmares. This is a detail a mother should know about her own child. Then the brother asks if he can sleep with him, but the mother loudly says no and tells him to go back to his own room. We notice there is no father figure in the house. The mother tells Victor to trust her, that everything will be all right, suggesting they've been through something tragic. In the middle of the night, several gunshots ring out. The brother screams for his mother and is then shot and killed. Victor reacts quickly. Instead of running out, he hides in the closet, but he's so scared he wets himself. A killer enters the room, sees the urine seeping from the closet, and says to the closet not to make a sound, to think of something happy. He asks if Victor knows a song he can sing silently in his head. Just as he's speaking, his accomplice bursts in. The young masked man dares not speak further. The accomplice raises his gun and fires a shot. Victor is killed. It wasn't until 4 years ago that he was resurrected and caused the bus crash. How he survived these past few years is not explained in the show, but undoubtedly choosing Julie was a very wise move. Julie is a very responsible person, but from her first appearance we can feel a sense of sorrow surrounding her. To take care of Victor, she must choose to work during the day. However, her job seems to be a home care nurse or physician, and many elderly people need urgent help at night. Victor sees her dilemma and does something. He jumps out of the window and then reappears before her, completely unharmed. This may be Victor's first time revealing to Julie his ability to create and project his visions to others. He is not a child who needs round-the-clock protection. Julie can go about her own business and handle her work. In other words, the truly fragile one is Julie. We can see that she has multiple scars on her abdomen. This traces back to 7 years ago. It was likely New Year's. The townspeople would gather for various parties, and they love cosplay. We see Julie dressed as Catwoman. The person dressed as Batman is the female police officer, Lore. Their complicated love story begins here. Julie is not one for crowded places, but the main reason she wants to go home is that she can't stand watching Lore flirt with another girl at the party. They had been living together. At this moment, Julie just wants to go back to her own place. Lore wants to keep partying and makes a half-hearted attempt to convince her to stay, but doesn't offer to walk her home or anything, eager to get back to the party, so this could be considered their unspoken breakup. As Julie walks through the underpass, Serge appears, covers her smelly mouth to prevent her from making any chicken noises, and stabs her repeatedly, causing her those scars. After the flashback, the doorbell rings at home. Victor thoughtfully alerts Julie and then hides in the bathroom. Julie opens the door to see her former lover, Lore. She's here to investigate the Lucy case. Julie confronts her, asking why she didn't come 7 years ago, pointing out that she never once visited her in those 7 years. Lore acts innocent, claiming it was Julie who didn't want her to come. Julie says she has nothing to say and shuts the door. The serial killer has struck again, making Julie extremely sensitive. Her deepest fear is exposed. She senses something is wrong. As she goes downstairs with scissors to investigate, the lights in the apartment lobby suddenly go out, then instantly come back on. Serge appears again. He covers Julie's smelly mouth to avoid any chicken noises and stabs at her with the scissors. She struggles to fight back. Everything is just as it was before. But then the camera shifts, and we realize it's not Serge, but Victor. He takes the scissors from Julie, then strokes her head to comfort her from her traumatic visions. With this, Julie's greatest sorrow is known to Victor. Julie begins to depend on Victor. This scene is very healing. The two have gone from strangers to finding solace in each other, as if it took centuries. The peeping Tom busty neighbor frantically rings Julie's doorbell. The moment Julie opens the door, the neighbor loudly demands to know why the police came to her apartment. She exclaims that she knew the child must be an illegal immigrant and that she's going to the police station to report them because it's illegal. Julie replies that she's really overstepping. Not wanting to waste any more time with her, Julie quickly closes the door, as she has to go out soon. But as soon as she leaves, Victor knocks on the neighbor's door, and the result is predictable. Within Victor's powerful illusion, the neighbor dies her busty life, her body licked by a group of cats. The next morning, a cleaner finds the body. The police arrive at the scene. As per protocol, Laura comes to question Julie as a neighbor. Victor hides in the bathroom. Suddenly, the light goes out, and he once again hears the masked man's words in his ear. Terrified, Victor runs out and hugs Julie. Now, Laura knows about Victor's existence. She thinks Julie is being reckless and insists on taking Victor to a government welfare agency. Julie is strongly against it at first, but when she sees a drawing Victor made, she freezes. It depicts the gruesome scene of the busty neighbor's death. Victor had never left the apartment, so how could he have known? Out of suspicion, Julie doesn't try to stop her anymore and lets Laura take Victor away. Soon, the neighbor's autopsy report comes back. Laura calls Julie immediately to reassure her it wasn't done by the cannibal Serge, it was a suicide. Victor has been taken to the Helping Hand shelter. Laura says she's trying to mend their relationship. At the shelter, Victor sees Mrs. Costa, who wasn't burned to death. To comfort Victor, Pierre tells him he must be very brave and asks him if he knows a song he can sing silently in his head. That's right, this is his catchphrase, which makes Victor realize that he was the young masked killer from back then. After waiting for so many years in a sea of faces, Victor has finally found him. Faced with Victor's piercing gaze, Pierre feels a bit creeped out. He walks away, feeling snubbed. The next day, Mrs. Costa takes Victor to the only diner in town and puts a big meal on her tab. Victor says nothing, but Mrs. Costa knows everything. She knows Victor's story. So, we should note here that Mrs. Costa likely has precognitive abilities, able to accurately predict every event. This is also why she can always run a tab at the diner. Mrs. Costa sees through Victor and asks him if there is someone he wants to harm. Then she adds a line that they don't need them to harm people. Mrs. Costa's words have a profound impact on Victor. He probably can't control his ability to manifest illusions, but he can change the content of those illusions. That's why Julie was saved by him in time. However, most of the time, he just watches the people in his illusions commit suicide. After their meal, they part ways. Unable to find Victor, Mrs. Costa is taken to the police station for questioning. Julie rushes over as well. Mrs. Costa says she was born in 1933 and is already dead. The police suspect she is mentally ill and talking nonsense. Only Julie says she believes her smelly bullshit because she is Mr. Costa's home care nurse back then and has seen their family photos countless times. Mrs. Costa says it's not just her who has returned from the dead. The boy Victor has too. Julie is not surprised to learn the truth. Perhaps she had already guessed. She is just very anxious about where Victor will go. It turns out he returned to the Helping Hand shelter. Here we see that the shelter is built on a mountain, overlooking the entire town. There is a reason for why it was built on a remote mountain instead of in the bustling town center. We'll get to that later. Pierre is also looking for Victor and is happy to see him appear. Victor gets straight to the point, saying he's already dead. Pierre was the masked killer who had killed him and his parents. Pierre jumps to his feet, saying it wasn't him who killed him. He tried to protect him, asking if he's forgotten. But Victor coldly replies no. As he speaks, the lights go out. Victor looks behind Pierre. The illusion appears again. The masked man with the gun is standing there. Just as he is about to fire, something changes. Pierre slaps the gun out of his hand and fearlessly rushes to fight him. This is a moment that even Victor himself didn't expect. This scene is truly fantastic. The arrival of Laure and Julie breaks the illusion. At this moment, both Pierre and Victor conquered their years of fear. In the shelter, there is another returned person, Simon. Let's dive into the dramatic and deeply emotional love triangle. Simon died 10 years ago, at the young age of 23. 10 years ago, he was the guitarist for the house band at the Lake Pub. He was in love with Adele, a waitress there at the time, and they were about to get married. They had a very strong relationship, and Adele loved Simon deeply. One morning, she told Simon she was pregnant. She thought Simon would be happy, but he wasn't. A fleeting moment of melancholy was followed by a forced smile, and then he cried like a baby. On their wedding day, everyone was waiting for the groom to arrive, but instead, the police came. This was also the first time the police captain met Adele. After Simon's death, Adele suffered from long-term psychological distress. Lucy's case has once again cast a shadow of fear over the town, and the police must solve the case immediately. Whether for personal reasons or his duty as a police officer, the captain successfully pins the suspect's identity on Simon because he has installed a full surveillance system in his home. Every day he can see what Adele and his daughter are doing. He discovered Adele's secret. She was hiding Simon in the attic. And crucially, this house belongs to the captain. Simon and Adele were performing passionate but smelly hormone yoga sessions in the master bedroom on the captain's bed. The captain was being cheated on by a dead man. He feels the most urgent task is to get rid of Simon by any means necessary. Adele's daughter is actually her child with Simon, so the captain's love is genuine. He has been helping to raise Simon's child all this time. What Simon did was indeed dishonorable. After their passion, Adele is once again blinded by love. She has her daughter meet Simon and even tries to leave town with him to start a new life working odd jobs elsewhere. However, her daughter is smart and rational. She doesn't want to leave. Simon has nothing but the shirt on his back. The captain, however, has a stable job, a big house, and a heart that truly loves them. As the daughter hesitates about whether to tell the captain about the returned Simon, she accidentally discovers the surveillance cameras in the house. Adele is completely exposed and has a falling out with the captain, threatening to run away with her daughter and Simon. In a moment of desperation, the captain tells her the truth about why he installed the cameras. It's because Adele's mental state has always been unstable, and for years, he has been the one taking care of the mother and daughter. One year, Adele even attempted suicide, choosing a time when the captain had taken their daughter out to play. After that, the captain installed the cameras as a precaution, afraid that Adele might try to harm herself again. Then, the second truth completely shatters Adele's idealized image of Simon. Simon did not die in an accident. On their wedding day, he chose to commit suicide. This truth hits Adele hard. She had always believed she was born for love and lived for love. After Simon's death, she was depressed for so many years. Even after his return, she accepted him without hesitation and continued to love him. It turns out, Simon was the one who chose to let go first. For their daughter, Simon is even more inferior to the captain. She understands that it was because of her impending birth that Simon, unable to handle the pressure, chose to kill himself. This is a silent abandonment. It must have been incredibly hurtful for his family. With nowhere else to go, Simon can only seek refuge at the Helping Hand shelter. Simon himself doesn't remember how he died. After being taken in by the shelter, Pierre tells him he was in a car accident. This is just the official story. The truth is different. To protect Adele, the captain likely did some cover-up work to hide the real cause of Simon's death. Pierre has him meet Camille. Simon asks Camille to find Adele, still thinking of taking them away with him. At this point, Adele has truly seen who her true love is. She and her daughter have always been very dependent on the captain. The captain is a very responsible man, so she flatly refuses Camille, saying she won't go. From Camille's perspective, this is just a love affair between a man and a woman. Simon seems very devoted, so Camille keeps trying to persuade Adele to meet him. However, from Adele's standpoint, this has become a matter of their future. What can a dead man with no sense of responsibility offer to guarantee a life for her and her daughter? That night, Simon indeed comes to find Adele, demanding to know why she didn't go to the station. Their daughter secretly calls the captain, then goes downstairs and tells Simon to leave, saying they won't be with him. She says that compared to them, he preferred to die, and they will be fine without him. These few short sentences show that the daughter's loyalty lies with the captain, proving that his care for her was not in vain. In the choice between birth and nurture, the debt of nurturing is perhaps greater. The captain arrives and, without another word, shoots and kills Simon. In the forensics lab, the medical examiner says the captain's shot was simple and brutal, straight to the heart. But the captain feels uneasy and repeatedly confirms that Simon is truly dead before going home. Back at home, he tells his daughter that if any police come to question her, she must say she doesn't know him. The daughter asks why she has to lie. The captain delivers a great line here. He says that if she tells the truth, they will think she's lying. He then makes a heartfelt confession to Adele. Perhaps for all these years, he has been a man who prefers to show his love through actions rather than words. And Adele happens to be a woman who enjoys the essence of romance itself, which is why she felt she loved Simon more than the captain. However, with Simon's return, a series of practical problems arise, making her even more dependent on the captain. The captain says Simon is dead, that he's been dead for a long time, and she can't let him torture her anymore. No matter how hard life is, she has to live it herself. He promises to always be by her side. And the captain does indeed keep this promise in the end, which is quite remarkable. Meanwhile, Lucy wakes up in the hospital. The doctor calls her a miracle. Her wounds have healed at an incredible rate. In the next chapter, we will talk about the story of Lucy and the cannibal killer Serge. When Lucy was found, it was already the next day. Her vitality is truly astonishing. She was still alive. Just like Julie 7 years ago, Lucy was stabbed and slashed 17 times. Serge even ate part of her liver. Julie survived back then because she was saved by the bar manager, Tony. He lives on the mountain with his brother Serge and their elderly mother. Serge usually doesn't come down the mountain, but when he does, it's to eat people, and he's only interested in girls. He had been waiting above the underpass for a target. Finally, he found the lone Julie. As he was eating her, Tony arrived in time and knocked Serge out with a shovel, then drove Julie to the entrance of an emergency station. That's how Julie's life was saved. Back on the mountain, Tony buried Serge alive. Both brothers loved their mother very much, but to prevent Serge from harming more people, their mother did not intervene to stop Tony. Unexpectedly, 7 years later, Serge has also returned. He doesn't remember being killed by Tony. He only knows he likes to eat raw food. When Tony returns home and sees a gnawed rat on the table, he is immediately alarmed, but he quickly accepts Serge's return. For all these years, he has felt guilty and couldn't bring himself to kill his brother again. It was this soft-heartedness that allowed evil to fester. Serge strikes again, harming Lucy. But unexpectedly, this attack turns out to be a rebirth for Lucy. A year ago, Lucy took a bus to this remote lakeside town. She went directly to the bar manager, Tony, and asked for a job. Tony is a good person. Seeing that she was a girl with no one to rely on, he immediately agreed to hire her as a waitress. At this time, Jerome and Claire's relationship was already in trouble. Jerome came to the bar every day to drink his sorrows away. Tony said that if he liked tragedy, he had come to the right place. He then told him that Jerome was like this because his daughter had died. After hearing this, Lucy immediately seduced Jerome. It wasn't just Jerome, but many other men as well. But all these men had one thing in common. They all had a recently deceased relative. Lucy has sex with them to gain energy and achieve a connection to the spiritual world. During she can see the souls of the dead. This is the real reason for her promiscuity. So Lucy is actually a medium. After recovering from her severe injuries this time, Lucy's abilities have been upgraded. She can not only predict the future, but can even control the souls of the dead. The first one she controls is the resurrected Simon. Before Simon goes to find Adele, Lucy has sex with him. Previously, she gained energy by having sex with the living. This time, by having sex with the dead, Lucy sees the scene of Simon's suicide. It's only then that Simon learns he had killed himself. When he recalls what Adele and her daughter said, he is overcome with guilt. His deceitful nature is exposed. He wants to win back Adele. Let's return to Serge. He hasn't committed any more crimes, not because he is no longer hungry, but because he has fallen in love with a girl. A very large scar has appeared on Lena's back. Because the old wound didn't heal properly, it turned into a keloid scar that constantly bleeds. This was an injury from a fight with Jerome a year ago. Because of the scar, Lena is very depressed. As she walks through the underpass, she faints. This time, Serge, who came looking for food, not only doesn't eat her, but saves her and takes her home. Serge restrains his cannibalistic desires and gives Lena his mother's clothes to wear. Seeing Lena from behind, Tony mistakes her for his mother having returned. Meanwhile, Lucy provides a very accurate sketch of Serge. Everyone immediately recognizes him as Tony's brother, so a large group of police heads to Tony's house. By this time, Lena also knows Serge's true identity, but the rebellious girl is truly rebellious. She suddenly feels that Serge won't harm her. After all, he treated her back with herbs. So the next moment, they get into bed and start playing hormone games. Just then, the police arrive. Tony, however, starts shooting at the police to protect Serge. Serge tells Lena to run, so Lena runs for her life. She runs home, hears Jerome's voice, and throws herself into his arms, sobbing. This is the beginning of the father and daughter's reconciliation. Serge and Tony flee into the forest, but find themselves walking in circles. Eventually, they come across a bonfire with nothing but raw meat. Finally, they reach the reservoir. Serge says since they can't walk out, they might as well swim. Halfway across, Serge suddenly vanishes, disappearing from the surface of the water. Tony swims to the shore alone. Meanwhile, Lucy has finally found her flock. A horde of the dead is waiting for her at the bar. These are the ones who were roasting and eating raw meat on the mountain. Unlike the returned, they have no thoughts, no memories, and are entirely under Lucy's control. In the next chapter, we will discuss the dark history of the reservoir and the town. At the end of the first chapter, we mentioned that the water level of the dam's reservoir was mysteriously dropping. However, the person in charge not only failed to report it, but decided to handle it internally. So where did all the water go? The show repeatedly provides visual cues suggesting that the water is seeping into the town through an underwater vent and is connected to the returned. The first instance is when Adele and the captain are in the church discussing their wedding plans. Their daughter goes to the restroom and finds the sink overflowing onto the floor. The second is at the bar, where the toilet is overflowing and someone is trying to fix it. This is also where Serge first saw Lena and became interested in her, which is why he didn't eat her for food. The third clue involves Lena's lover, who has had romantic entanglements with both sisters. He discovers the truth about Camille's return. To verify his theory, he digs up her grave late at night and finds her coffin filled with water. And as we mentioned in the last chapter, Serge was mysteriously pulled into the reservoir. All these details hint that the returned originate from the reservoir. So what exactly is at the bottom of the lake? After an inspector from the dam dives down, we discover a pile of animal carcasses at the bottom. A forensic autopsy confirms that these animals all walked into the water and committed suicide voluntarily. Then we see the ruins of houses at the bottom of the lake. To understand what is going on, let's go back 35 years. In that year, the old dam collapsed. The reservoir's water flooded the lakeside town. The grief-stricken survivors gathered together. At this time, Mrs. Costa was not yet dead, but she already possessed precognitive abilities. She tells Victor's mother that the disaster was man-made, and that one day, the dead will return for revenge. Here, we should pay attention to the two brothers, Serge and Tony. Serge is the older brother and was old enough to remember the events. Normally, Serge is the older brother, at least 5 years older than Tony. But because Tony killed Serge 7 years ago, Serge's age froze on that day. So when he returned, he became younger than Tony. The bond between these two brothers is very deep. As for why Serge became a cannibal who even eats animals, this is a major piece of foreshadowing directly related to the disaster 35 years ago. At this point, Victor was also still alive. His mother's words that everything would be all right, spoken on the night he was killed, referred to them having survived such a major disaster, believing good fortune would follow. Who would have known that their entire family would be murdered by thugs shortly after? All the clues indicate that something terrible must have happened among the town's survivors after the disaster. So let's return to Mr. and Mrs. Costa. As the first character to appear in the series, Mr. Costa has no further scenes after his suicide in the first episode, aside from his funeral. But he is actually a pivotal figure for the entire show. Mr. Costa was an honest and respected elder in the town. The returned Mrs. Costa once told Julie that she was surprised Mr. Costa still remembered her, but she didn't feel much for him. After Mrs. Costa's death, Mr. Costa never remarried and kept photos of her all over his house, appearing deeply devoted. Yet on the day of her return, he burned all the photos and even tried to burn her to death. This seems like a contradiction, unless Mr. Costa was just putting on an act all those years. Judging by Mrs. Costa's composure, she holds Mr. Costa in utter contempt. Mrs. Costa died in 1978, the year after the dam collapsed. What happened that year seems very important. Let's go to the Helping Hand Support Group. This association was founded after the dam collapse. Its purpose is to help the townspeople survive disasters. Pierre has feelings for Claire. To put her at ease, he takes her to the shelter's storeroom. We see large stockpiles of food and a full arsenal of weapons. The purpose of all this is to prepare for riots. As we mentioned earlier, the shelter was built on a mountain far from the town. This indicates that Pierre himself experienced the riots after the last disaster. He no longer trusts the government to provide aid, so he has been preparing all these years, genuinely wanting to protect everyone. Here we can make a bold guess. In the first few years after the last disaster, due to inadequate government relief, the newly built town was desolate. The survivors all endured starvation. What they could do to survive was to eat animals, eat corpses, even kill people to seize food. Mr. Costa must have done uncivilized things to survive. However, Mrs. Costa did not go along with it and could only die. Therefore, her return means bringing the truth back. This is why Mr. Costa chose such an extreme method, because he did not want this unbearable past to shatter his reputation in the town. Serge also became a cannibal during this panic, even developing a craving for human flesh. And the most significant symptom of all the returned is hunger, a hunger that can never be satisfied, which further hints at this dark history of the town. Mrs. Costa's prophecy has come true. What will become of the vast horde of the dead and the few returned hidden among the living? What kind of retribution will the people of the town face? The dam's hydroelectric plant has completely shut down. The town is plunged into a power outage and a state of desolation. For safety, people try to gather together as much as possible. Julie chooses to take Victor and move in with Laure. As we mentioned in Simon's chapter, the house belongs to the police captain. That's because this residential area is where government employees live. Laure lives next door to the captain. Adele is no stranger to Julie and is even very friendly. From their conversation, we can gather two important pieces of information. First, Julie lived here 7 years ago and cohabited with Laure for quite a long time. Second, Adele has been living with the captain for at least 7 years. So the captain has watched her daughter grow up and has indeed invested a lot of effort. Victor and Adele's daughter are playing on a trampoline when Victor can't resist showing off his vision powers again. The little girl's greatest fear is the scene of her mother's suicide attempt. When the image of a blood-soaked Adele appears, the girl faints instantly. This also exposes Victor's identity. Fiercely protective of his daughter, the captain demands that Laure take Victor to the police station for investigation. Laure rushes home, but upon seeing Julie's pitiful expression, her heart softens, and for the first time, she compromises. She listens to Julie and decides to drive them out of town. However, the car just keeps driving in circles on the dam. Just then, they see Tony attempting to commit suicide. Julie recognizes him as the man who saved her all those years ago and rushes over to save him without a second thought. At this moment, more and more of the dead appear, seemingly closing in on the town. Julie and the others quickly drive away. On the road, Laure says she must notify her colleagues to isolate the returned, otherwise it will be dangerous. Julie is furious. Just a moment ago, Laure had promised to help them escape, and now she's changing her tune. She accused Laure of wanting to separate her and Victor. The two of them stop the car and argue on the roadside. Only Victor and Tony are left in the car. Tony is a good man, but Victor uses his illusions to try to make him die. The main reason might be jealousy. After her near-death experience 7 years ago, Julie has found it difficult to form close relationships with others. Besides Victor, the second person she is willing to touch is not Laure, but the bar manager, Tony. She touches his head more than once. In her eyes, Tony is an angel, someone who has been silently watching over her. As we've mentioned, Tony has always felt guilty for burying her brother Serge alive. What made him feel even more remorseful was that his mother died of grief because of it. So, when the illusion of Serge holding a gun appears, saying he wants revenge, Tony doesn't resist. Of course, the illusion succeeds, and Tony shoots himself. To save him, Julie and Laure rush to the Helping Hand shelter. The shelter has its own generator for power, food reserves, beds, and a makeshift operating room. Most of the townspeople have gathered here. Julie is not a surgeon, but she acts decisively and performs the surgery. Although she removes the bullet without proper medical equipment, Tony's survival is uncertain. This part is arguably the most intense scene in the series. The scene cuts and we go back 35 years before Victor's family was murdered. Victor asks his mother what he should do if one day she also dies. His mother smiles and says that a fairy will take her place and continue to look after him. The camera then focuses on a figurine of a fairy with her hair up on the bedside table. This is the last heartwarming memory Victor has before his death. Then, the scene switches again. We see Julie after the surgery. She has put her hair up looking exactly like the fairy. So, in Victor's heart, she is the fairy who has taken his mother's place. Suddenly, a figure appears behind her. When Julie turns and sees him, tears instantly stream down her face. She can't believe it. The monster who hurt her is standing right here, and the monster is Tony's brother. The shock is so immense that she is momentarily at a loss. Tony struggles to give her a smile, and then he dies. He wanted to say sorry and asked for forgiveness. In the end, no amount of effort can save him. Because of Tony's death, Serge is helpless and pitiful. He actually hugs Julie, and she doesn't struggle, but very quickly she pushes him away. At this moment, Julie has completely transcended herself. She no longer fears life or death. She returns to the area outside the shelter's main hall, but doesn't go in. Victor, unlike the lonely Mrs. Costa, sees Julie and immediately walks over. They gaze at each other deeply through the glass door. Then both walk towards the entrance and embrace once more. Though he is a child, his body houses an old soul. Meanwhile, the captain kills some zombie-like dead at the lake pub. Simon and Lucy rush to the captain's house, wanting to take Adele and her daughter away. Jerome thanks Pierre for the first time. For all these years, he has held a grudge against Pierre out of jealousy. The reconciliation of these two rivals does not mean the end of the love triangle. Claire, this gentle, middle-aged woman, is still torn between the two men. Camille's body begins to show signs of decay. Like Simon and Victor, the bodies of the returned will slowly rot away. That night, Lucy and her zombie horde arrive. The police are guarding the entire shelter, but the horde of the dead grows larger and larger. People are terrified. The captain and Pierre decide to talk to Lucy. Lucy says she wants all the returned to rejoin her group. She will release Adele's daughter. Pierre wants to reach a peaceful agreement with Lucy, to not take sides, but the captain rushes back into the crowd, pulls out all the returned, and pushes them towards Lucy. All he cares about is his daughter. He doesn't care about the bigger picture. As he himself says in the show when talking to the priest, he's just a simple man. All he can do is try his best to protect his family. This means the families of the returned will be forcibly separated. At this crucial moment, Julie is the first to offer to go with Victor. Faced with this, Laure only makes a symbolic attempt to stop her. Given Julie's determined personality, trying to stop her would be futile. Just like 7 years ago, Laure chooses to do nothing. Jerome and Lena are held back by the police, powerless. Claire chooses to leave with Camille. The captain gets his daughter back in exchange, but Lucy says it's not enough. There's one more person. The captain thought she was talking about Serge because Serge is still in the basement guarding Tony's body. At this point, he must have also been summoned by Lucy because their mother appears presumably to take him away. However, Lucy says it's Adele and she wants Adele's baby. After hearing this, the captain, stunned, rushes back to the shelter without a second thought. As soon as he's back, he gathers everyone in the main hall and orders the entire building to be sealed. Adele is his last straw, so there's no way he will let her be taken. He will not hand her over under any circumstances. Therefore, he decides to lead the police in a direct confrontation with Lucy. After the building is sealed, we hear a burst of gunfire from outside. The next day, everyone comes out. The sun is shining, and everything is peaceful and serene. The police are gone. Lucy and the horde are also gone. People look down and see that the town below is half submerged. This is just like in Pierre's dream where Victor came to him, pointed at the town below and said the vast ocean was beautiful. This bit of foreshadowing is truly brilliant. Why did Victor not seek revenge? Just as Mrs. Costa said, they don't need to retaliate, because the town itself is rooted in tragedy. Being submerged is its destiny. The final shot is of Adele's abdomen, where she is carrying her and Simon's second child, a child of the living dead. The series ends. Many questions left unanswered by the show, such as that among the resurrected, why some have emotions and memories, while others are like zombies. The bodies of the returned all show signs of decay, so what will they eventually become? For those interested, you can look for answers in the second season.